everybody, Happy New Year! So this is obviously going to be my first TBR of 2024, and it is quite a modest one because at the minute I have no plans to change the way that I've been structuring TBRs over the last year or so, and we're gonna carry on with that in 2024. So in this video you're going to have my mandatory reads, so that's my book club picks, my Patreon picks, and also anything that I know that I'm definitely going to get to, which leaves me some room for more spontaneous reading throughout the month, and also not necessarily like secret TBRs, but content ideas where I have some room, like some wiggle room with the exact books that I'm reading. So in the month of January specifically, I don't really have any plans. My only plan for January is to hibernate. There's no readathons happening. I have some exciting vlog content that I want to start working on. And aside from doing a whole lot of nothing and staying indoors, I do have a lot of videos to make. You're going to have all of the end of year content coming your way over the next couple of weeks. And I'll also be pre-filming some things for February because my February is very busy. My January is going to be very, very low key. Now, where I left you guys in December, I was talking a big game. I said that I did not want any of the books in my December TBR to be spoken about again in a TBR video because a lot of them had been rolling over from, I think the oldest one on there was from August. And I am happy to tell you guys that I almost succeeded. I have one book from that TBR that is going to be rolling over into January, just one, and I'm actually very impressed with myself. There were 7 books total in that video, and that is my December Patreon pick, so it's not one that's been on there for a long time either. So I guess we'll get stuck in with the Patreon pick, starting with this one. My December Patreon pick, I believe, was Debbie's pick, and that was The Bone Spindle by Leslie Vedder. So this one is a gender-bent YA retelling of Sleeping Beauty, following a treasure hunter and a warrior that have to wake a sleeping prince that has been cursed for 100 years. So one of the characters pricks their finger on a spindle, and from that moment they are haunted by Briar Rose, who is the prince, until they manage to break his curse. I am getting an ebook copy of this, which is why I do not have a physical one to show you. This one is not a book that I would have picked up if it hadn't been a Patreon pick, but I do think that it is going to be a fun time. I do like retellings as well, so I'm interested to see where Leslie Vedder takes this one. So from there, we may as well get into my December, no, that is not the month, my January Inner Circle Patreon pick. If you guys are unfamiliar with this little jar, I did manage to squeeze everything in. I have a very wet cat on my knee right now. Every member of my Inner Circle tier on Patreon gets to pick a book that is added into this jar, and every month I will pick one out and I have to read that in the month that it is pulled, because for 2024 we are going to be on our shit and I'm gonna stop rolling things over. So I don't have a preference of a specific book that I would like to come out of here, but it would make my life a lot easier if it was romance, and then if it's fantasy romance, even better, and if it's spicy fantasy romance, even better once again. Not that I'm like gonna be disappointed if something else comes out, but based on content that I have planned in January, that one would make my life the easiest. So let's see what we can pull. It's really hard to rummage in here now. I'm gonna go with, oh, this is quite an old one because it's yellow. And that is Nettle and Bone. This one is Kathy's pick, and I'm pretty sure, is this Tea Kingfisher? It is Tea Kingfisher. Okay, so this is actually quite fitting because I think it was my most recent unboxing that I posted. I did say that I didn't know whether I should try Tea Kingfisher and like ask for recommendations of where I should potentially start, because Tea Kingfisher has like a very large variety of different stories. Okay, so this is one of Tea Kingfisher's fantasy books, which is exciting. And this one is about a girl who has spent years seeing her sister suffer at the hands of an abusive prince, and has finally realized that no one is coming to the rescue except for the girl herself. So she seeks help from a grave witch to hopefully kill the prince, and she will receive those powers if she can complete 3 impossible tasks. So that sounds super interesting to me actually, especially with this like 3 impossible tasks element. And I'm also very excited to finally be trying Tea Kingfisher, so thank you very much Kathy for your recommendation. So moving on to the book club picks, I do have 2 this month. The first one is the catch-up book book club book for November and December, I think is the official months, and that is Red Country by Joe Abercrombie. This is one of the shortest books in the First Law universe, so I'm definitely excited about that because the synopsis of this one is not my favorite. This is the third standalone in the First Law universe. It is a like extended series of very grimdark stories that kind of, I want to say like they highlight the futility of humanity is part of the overarching themes that I've seen like running through this series. There's like a whole ton of stuff going on there as well, but these three standalones have little inklings that contribute to the overarching plot, or like I'm assuming that they do. Because of the theme of futility throughout here, the overarching plot can be quite muddy, but that's kind of like the vibe that I'm getting from the two standalones I've read so far. The reason why I'm not super hyped about this one is because I believe it is Joe Abercrombie's take on a Western, and I've discussed this recently in a video, I don't remember which one, but Westerns, they're just not for me. I don't like second year and Mistborn, and Westerns as a genre are overtly masculine, like 9 times out of 10, and it just does not really appealed to me in any way, shape or form. But I did say that about The Heroes by Joe Abercrombie, which is a 3-day battle that is told from the perspective of like multiple different people involved, and I did actually quite enjoy that one, so maybe this one will take me by surprise as well. I do feel like it's helpful when I go into books with low expectations. That definitely gives me more potential to enjoy them, I've noticed, and if I go into something like assuming that I'm going to love it. My other book club book is for my Patreon book club, and that is book 4 in the Savage Land series by Stacey Marie Brown, which is Badlands. This one is a post-apocalyptic fantasy romance series following a girl who was born at the moment that the veil between the world of the Fae and the humans fell. There was a war that followed after this, and it resulted in the city of Budapest being split between the Fae and the humans. So our main character is from the human side. She's the ward of the king, and to give back to the common people from her position of privilege, she steals drugs and other goods from trains that transport them from the human to the Fae sides of the country, and she puts those goods onto the black market so that the people who like need the money can benefit from the profit instead of the elite. And then one day she's actually caught at the Fae checkpoints and thrown into a maximum security prison. And it's very fast paced, it's very action packed, it's full of conveniences, kind of repetitive, but it is actually really addictive and a really good time. I've really been enjoying this series as like a no thoughts head empty kind of read, and while it does have all of those conveniences and repetitive elements that do kind of annoy me a little bit, I'm very excited based on some of the elements that we have that continue to go unanswered. I'm still interested in seeing like where this series leads. And then the final book that I have to add to this TBR, I told you that it was a modest one, is going to be a reread for me, and that is House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J Maas. The third book in this series does come out at the very end of January. It's released on the 30th. I'm not going to be able to read it until the end of February, which if y'all know me, you'll know that's very sad, and I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to handle it. But this one is the second book in the Crescent City series by Sarah J Maas. It is an urban fantasy series following a half-fae woman called Bryce Quinlan, who is tasked with investigating a string of high-profile murders by the Archangel of the city. The reason why she has been selected is because she has a personal tie to the case, and this murderer is actually somebody that they thought they already had in prison for murders that were committed 2 years prior to the start of the story. However, the murders have started up again, and so Bryce has been tasked with investigating, and because this is such a dangerous job, she is assigned the aid of a fallen angel called Hunt Athalar as her bodyguard. I'm nervous about rereading this one because I love book 1. Book 1 is my favorite book ever, and this one was disappointing to me based on how much I love the first book in the series, and I'm kind of reserving my judgment on this series until book 3 is released and I've read it, but I am incredibly nervous. So this one in particular, it is very slow, it's quite fan servicey in elements, and I don't love the end of this, not because of what it entails, but because I wanted more for these characters than what the end of this book suggests, if that makes sense. I am going to be making a recap video on this. I did do one for House of Earth and Blood when this book was released, so towards the end of January I will be posting a full thorough recap of this for anybody who wants to go into House of Flame and Shadow without rereading. Is it Flame and Shadow? I think it is. And I will also be posting a spoiler vlog of House of Flame and Shadow, as I always do, when I get around to that at the end of February. Actually, I lied. I do have one more book to add that I completely forgot about, which is an ARC that was sent to me by Solaris. So thank you very much to Solaris for that. And that is Red Sight by Meredith Mooring. So this is actually only released in February. However, as I said, I do have a very busy February, so I can't guarantee that I'm going to get to it. So if I could get this into January, then that would obviously be amazing. This one is a sci-fi that was kind of like sold to me as like Gideon the Ninth meets June. And I believe that it contains space pirates and is also potentially sapphic. So I'm really excited to get into this one. I have had a great track record with Solaris books in the past, and I have recently read and love Gideon, so anything that's going to provide those kind of vibes I'm definitely down for. So this is my January TBR, which I do feel is very, very manageable. I do also have 2 books to add to this, but Nestle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, I think the majority of T. Kingfisher's books are very small, so I'm not necessarily worried about that. And Bone Spindle by Leslie Vedder, it seems like it's going to be pretty action-packed if I'm honest, so I don't think that that's going to be a particularly slow or challenging read either. This is going to be quick. This is the shortest first law book I've read. Obviously have no idea about Red Sight, but I'm actually really hyped to get to that one. And this one is a reread. I do have to pay a lot of attention to it because I am making a recap for it, but because despite everything I do really love the characters and this world, it's not like it's going to be especially taxing for me. Now I do have ambitious plans outside of this, so while I'm not worried about this TBR, I am actually low-key worried about how I'm going to read all of these alongside everything else I want to read, but that is a problem for future me. And like I said, I'm not really doing much apart from filming, editing and hibernating in January, and normally, like historically, January has been one of my best reading months of the year almost every year because I don't really do much in January except read, and I'm full of like that new year motivation to get things read. So down in the comments, let me know what your first book of the year is going to be if you know. I know some people put a lot of weight in what their first book of the year is going to be. They want it to be like special to kind of like indicate what the year ahead is going to be. I don't do that, but if you do, if you know what your first book of the year is going to be, I actually really don't know at this point, but if you do, let me know down in the comments. And aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish Candle website, the Etsy for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.